saying that you never went through a period where you sweated too much or you were 300 pounds overweight?
Stephen King's The Whale is a 1996 American body horror film directed by Spider-Man, starring Robert John Burke, Joe Montana, Stephen King, and Brendan Fraser.
More terror, less filling.
Welcome back to the Cult of Films. I'm John, the host, and I'm feeling particularly famished tonight because I'm staring at these tasty morsels. That's Lee, and that's Stephan with Cannibal Video.
Dinner. I should have brought puns about food and being hungry. For some reason, I was like, where's he going with this?
You know that I don't prepare, let alone myself, let alone for you guys. So
Perfect.
This is par for the course.
I'll have you know, I took 4 notes on this movie. I'm fucking ready. You want me to run this episode? I got it.
Let's just say, okay, this is a new segment. This is a whole new segment. This is a whole new show. This segment's called Stephan's Notes. Just run us through our 4 notes right now.
Okay. Actually, it's a tad more than 4, but I'll give you the 4 highlights.
Okay, give me the highlights.
I wrote.
I will give you 4.
The money fairy, the way he showers.
Yep.
I wasn't fucking blowing myself, and you bitch.
What?
You bitch.
The highlight. That's the note. That's...
Why have you cut this vertical slice through them? It's all the creepiest, most misogynistic, most awkward parts. And you're like,
just the funny parts. I also wrote that I thought it was funny that Montana carries a mugshot picture of himself around.
This is great. This is great.
It's wonderful, yes.
Maybe spread out throughout the episode that wouldn't have been so concentrated, but just all at once, that was a lot. But no, thank you both, gentlemen, for showing up. We're talking about not a Stephen King adaptation, but a Richard Bachmann adaptation, because that's different, which it kind of is, because the Richard Bachmann novels are known to be more of a ticking clock, a little bit faster paced than the traditional nose candied up Stephen King that we know and love, like The Stand or Salem's Lot, where he really spends 4 chapters on what Randall fucking Flagg's denim jacket looks like and all his buttons. This is more a race against time, but this is more of a race against food, because we're talking about Thinner tonight.
Thinner.
A film-ish that everyone fucking hated. It had an $8 million budget. It made $15 million. I was actually kind of upset. This movie actually made money. I thought everyone hated it, and I thought no one showed up, but domestically it made $15 million. So it actually, I wouldn't say do its job, but it almost got there. It almost doubled its budget, with a cast that you were like, who? And a plot that's like, huh? But I had such fond memories of this film growing up, and on the rewatch for this, I'm going to bury the lead. I fucking love this movie, and I think it holds up. Lee, what did you think of?
Face like, we're
Thinner.
fucked now. He's fucked us.
I'm going to put a curse on both of you, I feel.
I have an extremely, I always liked it or whatever, but I hadn't rewatched it. I didn't really care about it. I like the premise. I like thrillers in general. So I remember liking it. Stephan was like, you're crazy. That movie sucks. And I was like, well, now I'm never going to watch it again, because what if it does suck? I'll be like, what the fuck or whatever. So now I'm so glad that I can be in the middle of the two of you, because I saw what I liked when I first watched it, and I don't know what you mean by it's not a Stephen King thing. I thought it was a Stephen King. He has a writing credit, right? Isn't that a whole, I don't know what you're talking about?
Richard Bachman is his pseudo name. He did 5 books as Richard Bachman.
God, I fucking hate books. Okay. fuck you, book people. All the book, but like that's
a
the whole
T-shirt,
thing.
Lee. I fucking hate books.
Fucking every time someone starts talking about books, I'm just like, this is not getting us anywhere. Please come back to like where we can talk fast about things that happen in real time, like a movie, like a documentary. Okay, so it's a Stephen King thing, and all of them suck, and it sucks in like 100 ways that all Stephen King things suck. There's too much in there. They fucking have him on set, or they fucking have him be like, no, we have to include the scene with the button. That way they'll know about the button later. I'm like, holy fucking shit, stop it. Cut parts out, do it. The only good King things distance themselves from Stephen King, and he's fucking in here. He has lines. He's all over this fucking thing. So I'm like, that's why
a couple scenes.
It like sucks, but like my brain, when I watch anime or Stephen King things, I just chuck 70% of it out, and I just try to get to the essence of like the premise of the cool stuff that introduced me to, and I forget the goofy pacing and all the script is just packed with all this like remedial bullshit and lines, and I'm like, God, stop it, or whatever the fuck. So it does suck, and I did have fond memories, and I did enjoy rewatching it. So everything's covered.
Everything's covered. Everyone should be happy and or pissed off.
At the end.
I've heard about you, and again, I've heard that you can be fun, cooperative, but there's a snap.
I'm like a guy who loves Stephen King movies, but I think he just can't ever knock it out of the park for me. He's great with ideas. I think his short story stuff is really good. He's obviously a talented writer. He's better on coke than when he's off coke. But this movie suffers from a lot of the things that like bad horror for me is. Like, I'm like, I don't need this weird, like, you're painting a picture stuff. Show me things. Do things. Stop showing me, like, this like, weird fat guy who's obsessed with food with his beautiful wife and daughter type of thing. Like, I don't need this King of Queens bullshit. Get out of here.
Get your hot wife out of here, guy.
So you did not like this movie growing, like, I
You've
thought
always
that,
dated
So I definitely didn't like it growing up because this was
sure.
just not my cup of tea. It's not like a horror movie as I watch horror movies. It's a long episode of The Twilight Zone.
Sure.
And not one of the better ones.
Sure. Yeah, if I were a betting man, and I'm not, thank God, I would have guessed that Lee would have fucking dumped all over this movie and that you would actually like this movie. So this is actually pretty interesting.
Here's the thing, though. Like, I'm shocked to hear you even call it a horror film. I'm like, this is not a horror film. What do you mean? If I'd went into it thinking,
it's a fairy tale.
Oh, it's a horror film, I would have hated it too, because it's like a bad horror film. But I like it as a weird, like, thriller, like, supernatural, like a big episode of like, The Outer Limits, though.
It's a fable.
Not the Twilight Zone. Yeah.
When you go into a Stephen King movie, especially for me as a kid, I expect high horror, fun stuff.
For God's sake.
It's for the best.
Eddie, please!
Because you've heard of books.
Creatures, and then this.
It's protected from the books. Yes.
You know, it wasn't, especially because I would have been like 9 or 10.
Sure.
This isn't scary for me. I'm like, fat guy gets skinnier. That sounds like it's fucking his dream. I'm like, okay, that's the premise of withering away is something. I can understand that. But I also think, like, I'd like to establish more of the rules, because like he says one day, like, I skipped lunch and now I've lost 6 pounds, and I'm like, okay, so if he would have ate 4 lunches, would he have only lost 1 pound? Could he beat it? Could he taper off? Could we do a thing about him going into insanity where he has to eat so much just to stay his weight? He could be like the
Start
character
eating people.
There's a character who's cursed with an insatiable hunger in Highway 66 or something with James Marsden. But the guy just has a truck stop hustle where he just goes to truck stops and goes, hey, I bet you I could eat everything on the menu. If I do, you have to pay. And just that's how he survives.
Let's talk about what this movie's about. And in the spirit of the film, we'll do it in like a triathlon type way. We're going to work out while we're doing this and try to lose some of that extra holiday weight to get us into summer shape. So I'm going to start, and then I'll just say someone's name, you pick it up, and then as soon as I say someone else's name, they pick it up. So just be on your toes and be ready. This movie takes place in Maine, like everything else that fucking Stephen King writes. Our main character, we're introduced to Billy Halleck. Lee.
Main character. Yeah, he's a fat fuck, and everyone's like, well, you're kind of a fat fuck, you guy. And he's a lawyer.
Oh, the angel of mercy will come forward to suck the poison from my healing buckets.
And he helps mobsters, and it's like, why are we talking about this so much? And it takes a long time to get through to the point.
Stephan.
He's got a loving family who don't want him to die.
Do I have to?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
the wife loves him a little too much. He gets distracted while driving and hits a
I'm sorry, the G slur.
The G slur. We'll say the G slur.
No, yeah, he hits someone, and then it's like, oh,
Stephan.
crazy.
And now the whole family has to come after him and ruin his life and curse him with thinner.
John, and it's not only just him that's actually being cursed, it's the two people that help him cover it up, because he is a corrupt lawyer and he has a corrupt cop friend, and Lee.
And they work together to like cover up.
You fucked it up,
crime.
Stephan.
So he gets cursed with like being turned into a lizard, and that guy gets cursed with fucking leprosy or some shit.
Pimples.
It's unclear. What is it?
He just gets really bad acne in the book.
Oh, I thought you actually knew something I didn't
We'll
know.
have to talk about that.
You might have the award for the biggest blackheads.
Yeah.
So yeah, like it's this whole thing. Everyone goes down for this crime, and as he's gonna die from wasting
Lee?
away,
He goes on a road trip with Tony Montana, and they become the best of friends, and they do activities together to strengthen their bond. And then eventually, I
Stephan.
don't know what you did.
he just likes killing gypsies. And he takes any excuse to help this man and his potential.
John, and he actually starts killing dogs, which is like the cardinal sin of any feature, Lee.
But unlike in other things, that goes totally unremarked upon.
Stephan.
And then
He has a moment where he throws acid in someone's face, but
Lee.
it turned out to be.
But it's not. It's piss. It's all piss. And then he has real acid, though, begging the question of, like, what if he mixed up these mason jars in his trench coat?
John,
Is he-
and the one difference between this and an actual Stephen King movie or book, because it's the same ending in both adaptations, is that you actually get, in my opinion, you guys can
Stephan.
disagree when I say your name, a fucking satisfying ending. Stephen King can't end a fucking book to save his life, and he never has. He writes 40 books a year, but he can't end one of them. This one actually has a nihilistic Stephan.
They did not give me the ending I wanted. So the ending is ambiguous, which I think is the problem, where Stephen King either gives you too much or too little, and in this situation, they should have given us a little bit more,
Lee.
because potentially.
It was not ambiguous at all. The ending was perfect, and probably why I ended up liking the movie, besides the weird curse stuff and that I also liked in the beginning and stuff. It's great. No one has a good time, like real life.
And scene. That is what Thinner is about. Thanks for fucking coming. Where can everyone find you? No, okay.
Let's talk about the ending, since we're at the ending already.
So we're doing this all backwards.
For years, I've been walking around being like, eat your own pie, okay? Die clean.
Yeah,
you gotta do this. This is
Yeah.
this is important. I've been like in my head.
Die clean, white man from town. Die clean.
So what I think would have been the true horrific ending here is he has to live with this whole thing. So like maybe the pie isn't holding all the poison. It literally goes to the first person, and maybe just his wife dies. And that would be one thing, right? And then the daughter has to live with this monster of the father who killed the mother, who potentially was not cheating at all. It would have been great if she wasn't cheating at all, but they kind of fucked that ending up.
They
and make
established
it pretty
that she
clear
was.
that he's
Yeah.
actually cheating with the wife, and I don't like that. The true horror is you are paranoid. You're your own worst enemy.
Yes.
You just killed your wife. You are gonna go to jail because there's no excuse. No jury's like, oh, she ate a poisoned pie. Like what? Or if we're gonna go one step further, if only the first person who consumed the pie gets the poison, but it would have been this beautiful sweet dessert. He kisses her.
Strawberry pie.
And that little residual pie from the first bit that she didn't finish gives him back the thinner thing. And maybe it's slower. Maybe it's like cancer now, the thing he was afraid of having. And instead of him losing 3 pounds a day, he loses 3 ounces a day. And now it takes him a full year to fucking die. That's horror, Stephen King.
And I can't pay his medical bills that he has to cook. This is fucking. That's what we need. Is a
Dying in
modern
cancer in
felon.
jail for killing his family. Sure.
Yeah.
Right?
But I mean, if you've read Stephen King books, and I know Lee hasn't, I'm telling you, for someone that has been a fucking fan fan all my life of these goddamn books. He can't end anything, and this was at least a wrap-up in a way where it had that Black Mirror or Twilight Zone type of ending, where it's just like, yes, of course, we can infer and it's spelled out, but we know the fucking daughter's dead. We know, he's dead. And it's not satisfying at all because ultimately the bad guy wins, right? He kills his entire family, kills an innocent, and he kills himself. So that's like, he gets away with murder essentially because he's murdering himself. So that's
which is what he was doing the whole movie.
Exactly.
Eating himself to death.
So this way he has his entire, he's having his cake and eating it too, or his pie.
He loses everything. He loses everyone and everything. What do you mean he gets off?
Including the weight.
He does lose
He's gonna
the
look
weight.
great in his casket. Just saying.
Let's talk about Robert John Burke. He's
RoboCop?
headlining this. If you haven't heard of him, like Lee just said, he's RoboCop 3, I think. He's one of the RoboCops. Anyways, I didn't.
In the city?
I didn't really exactly. I wasn't familiar with too much this guy has done, and maybe if you've watched Thinner, that's why, because he is just acting to the fucking back of the room in this fat suit. So crazy, like
Give me a little kiss, sweetheart. Right here.
everything. Like he can't even like take a bite of a sandwich or a sip of a milkshake without being like or this is
I actually like that. He has fat guy charm. And when he goes off the rails, he is also projecting to the back row. There are parts where he's eating food, and he reminds me of the fucking penguin from Batman. He's like, like just like whooping down, like, I don't know, cheese sticks or something.
There's a point where he gets in his wife's face. He's like, I've been eating so much. And like her hair moves because he's yelling so much, and food's coming out of his mouth. It's great.
Fucking chicken.
It's great. I love it.
That's great. That is a great scene.
It's not anorexia. I don't have a tapeworm. I've been eating like mad for over 6 weeks, 6, 10, 12,000 calories a day, at least. And I'm still losing weight. I'm being erased.
If anyone has acted in films or have been around like filmmakers, which you gentlemen have, like, you know that like eating or like having to actually eat food in a scene is the fucking worst because you're taking so many takes. Everything that you're eating is so cold by the time you're actually doing it. So usually in a good movie, they do it in a way where it's just like you see them right to the bite and then they don't show the actual bite because the poor actor is just like putting it in their mouth and spitting it out. They have fucking Robert John Burke eating constantly in this stories, and having to do his lines through it. So I mean, kudos to that because it must have been a miserable experience for this man doing all the makeup, sitting in that fucking fat suit all the time, or even the skinny guy makeup, and then just constantly actually eating on set. Oh my god!
Well, and he had to lose a lot of weight. Like there are parts where he's very skinny and like
he was a firefighter like in real life.
140 pounds, something. He's light.
This is an opportunity, though, for Stephan for us to loop in one of your things. I assume you mean the showering, which I wrote down wet fat suit, but yeah.
Yes. And you can see it because I'm sure he's afraid of like actually ripping or doing something. He's just like,
rubbing his nipples.
It's extra funny. It gives me like Ben Stiller, I'm fat suited, or Tom Cruise in a fat suit. Like
it was like
fat bastard type.
It was like fat bastard. Arms bend was like weird seams or something.
Yeah.
I'm a big,
but this didn't look any worse than those, right? This didn't look any worse than Fat Bastard or like Nutty Professor.
When it's not a comedy, John, it's extra funny.
This is a dark comedy, though. Like you cannot view this as
no, that's 100%.
It absolutely is. You cannot view this as a straight up horror movie. This is a dark comedy to the nth degree.
It's a thriller.
It's not though. It's so silly
with a dash of Fat Man in the shower.
It really tries, and then at a certain point of the film, and this is where it loses a lot of people, and rightfully so. But in my opinion, this is where it just turns into such like a enjoyable watching experience. Is the dream sequence where he goes and he confronts Lemke, and she's like shooting a fucking ball bearing at him, and he jumps in the car, and his friend as a full on lizard man who looks like Ghost of Christmas, whatever from Scrooge, and he's just like, get in my car, and he's just like driving around, and then Lemke's in every single car that's about to kill him, and I'm like, oh my god, this is hilarious, and it's crazy, and it's fucking madcap, and it's great. Like that's where it makes a turn, and everyone's just like, I'm out, this is not a fucking horror movie. But that's where I'm like, now I'm having fun.
I think that was a mistake because showing the lizard man, the wife was so great at giving me a mental image of what that was.
It's true.
And then when I saw it, I'm like, oh, he looks just like a charcoal burned man. Like, he doesn't look like a lizard at all. He didn't have claw hands. His eyes weren't little beady nothing. Like, I don't know if you read the script. That's not what you said it was.
$8 million, Stephan.
It's a dream sequence, and I found it charming because I also had like the ghost, not the Beetlejuice idea, but that Scrooge is even better. I love Scrooge, and he was like that guy that puts his head through the thing. Who's a fucking
maybe
I was like
Bob Marley or whatever.
That were literally what it was going to be right before. It might have broke that illusion for me so badly.
The dolls made me go like, oh wait, how wild is this? And then when it was a dream sequence, I was like, oh okay, fine. I think it's weird to have a dream sequence in like the first place, but once you're doing it's do whatever. And then to have him die in that same way, so you're like, oh, was it real? It's like, no, it was a dream sequence. It obviously doesn't look like that. Whatever, right? Whatever. Yeah.
I like that because that's like a King staple of like the antagonist fucking with your dreams and stuff like that. Like there's nowhere safe. He does that a lot in like other books and other films. It's just the Stephen King language, even though it's a Bachmann book. Like as far as an antagonist goes too, it's just like this makes you afraid of an 106-year-old man pretty efficiently too, because he is terrifying.
He is unsettling. I'll definitely say that.
159, right? And next week gonna be 143, and the week after that, ooh, we don't like to think about that, do we, mister?
I don't remember the trailer for this movie. I'm not sure if either of you do, but my thing with the issue I have with any time there's a dream sequence is usually those are heavily in trailers, and it just it's directing people to see something that they're not even interested in. Like, oh, I like that thing that's in 4 seconds of a movie that you've just
like that tone is not anywhere else.
Yeah.
Stephen King's Thinner. More terror, less filling.
Because it's usually the most exciting thing, because it's the most off-the-wall thing, right?
Because we went crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. For the most part, watching a guy lose weight, there's never a part where I was like bored. It paced pretty well, because as soon as it starts, like as soon as the curse happens, you're along for the ride pretty quick, and it's pretty brisk. It's just like he's constantly losing weight, and you're just like, oh shit. And it's like I kept checking the time, like the time code on this when I was watching it while driving. I don't recommend that. I kept checking the time code because I'm just like, fuck, like he's like, his weight is counting down with the time code almost. And you're just like, fuck, like how is he going to look at 50 minutes? How is he going to look at, 100 minutes or whatever? And it's kind of a fun, even though it's not like scary, it has a fun level of tension that you could kind of like, it's almost like a escape room type deal. Like invites the audience in to be like, you're along for the ride with Billy. You're watching him just waste away before your eyes, and you feel helpless to kind of stop it as much as he does.
I'm being erased.
Well, and he goes through like the stages of grief almost, where at first he's like denying, well, I didn't have anything to do with this, and then he keeps losing weight, and by the end he's pissed off, and he's, I have to eat all this fucking food, Martha, or else I fucking, and he's like going crazy on them, and they're like, okay, our daughter's gonna go stay with, with someone else. You're crazy. Like,
the dinner scene with him and his daughter is just like, oh my god.
He's just eating so much.
He's just eating Cool Whip at that point. It's just, there's nothing on that plate but just fluff.
I thought of that pie where I was like, okay, that's why it's that different, because he has to talk through several spoonfuls for for the scene. So yeah, the pie is just like it's just suds, it's just puff, fluff or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I want to say real quick though, because you mentioned the time code, I noted some time codes because this movie is so by the book. It's like 90 minutes long. 30 minutes in, he goes and like says to like the mobster like, hey, I need your help or whatever. And then 60 minutes in, so like the other third, that's when he's like, I curse you with the white man from town curse now. Right. And he's like, and it's like at these very predictable moments, literally a third in and then 2/3 in, it's like you are signaling that we are switching from one act to the other to go into the different phases of this very overloaded movie with too much plot in it whatsoever. But yes,
this could have been fun. A reboot, a twist on the head of this would be our gypsy dude comes to town. He curses our fat lawyer. The fat lawyer, though, is like, haha, I'm losing weight. This is awesome. White man curse. And he just uses litigious means to fuck that guy's life. Oh, I tied up all your income. Oh, I deported your son. Oh, I did this. And like literally white man curses him. And until the guy's like, oh, I will take it away. I will take it away.
No. And it would have been like hit with like you're being too woke. Cause like this has this awesome, like, oh, these dudes conspire to like, cover up their fucking crimes so these people get like fucked over or something like that. But yeah, like I remember this is 96, I think, right? Yeah. I remember back then kind of feeling like this was a movie that was sort of countering the whole like, oh, what's a curse anyway? Oh, you're gonna fucking whatever. I'll get my boys here to fucking burn your house down. Fuck you. Like it had this weird like, yeah, we're gonna fight back against the supernatural with our being shittiness, right? And if you made that more, less fun, because Tony Montana is fun. You can't make it. It has to be like a bad guy where you're like, I wish he would stop. He's going too far, and then he just disappears from the movie and never gets resolved.
I was just gonna say, I can't remember where he exits. He's like, I'll see you at the White House, and then you never see him again.
Your friend is a pig, and he will die then. But you will die first. Bastard!
Right?
On this rewatch, part of me was like, wait, was that all a dream? Because they already showed us a dream. Right. And now he's just does Tony Montana ever show up to help him? But then the old guy in his thing, he goes, your crazy friend gonna kill my old daughter again. And I'm like, oh, okay. So he's acknowledging that, that Tony Montana is real. So I'm like, fuck, okay. It's not as cool.
Is the American like that? Like, yes, the white man's curse is the gun. We have the gun, and the gun solved all the problems.
The one dude, goes in and wipes out the camp.
And he's the mob boss. I honestly respect that.
The curse of the white man from town is that if they decide to ruin your life, they can just do it eventually, and no one will care about your complaints. No one will help you because this person who represents,
you don't matter anyways.
Well, he's the lawyer. He's a whatever. Oh, get those dirty people. Oh, they bring disease and fornication and bad things. They have dog fights. Get them out of my my city, right?
Let's want the whole damn high school football team down with a clap or worse. And dog fights, and make the money on dog fights now, chief. Hey,
right? Like the whole system represented early on is going to kick in and be like, no, you lose, like officially. That's the.
But that was his lizard. That was his lizard judge's friend's view on them. He didn't even view it that way. He was the one that was like sticking up for her, where he was like, here, give this quarter, and she's going to show her your underwear, blah blah blah. And he's just like, I think she just heard you or whatever. Like he was the one that was
him.
Like Gypsy powers.
For the most part, he wasn't even like, and I think that was translated where the other ones got it worse and faster, where he had a death sentence, but at least like since he was the one that killed the daughter, he at least got the least of the curses, I guess.
It depends on what the cop's word was, and we never find out. Is it in the book, Mr. Book?
Well, here's what's in the book, and you guys mentioned a lot of Joe Montana, Richie the Hammer, Janelli. There was one little part of the book that would have just like given so much to the movie, because in the movie, like you said, it's just so much like, where did he go? Like he was just gone after the whole acid scene. He like took his bow and exited stage left. He went back to, so like Billy goes back to his car, and he just finds Richie's severed hand on the steering wheel. And it's like, okay, so the gypsies got him, but everything else happened the same. So it's like, still, Lemke was just like, I don't, do you want your daughter dead? I don't want anyone else dead. So we'll just call it this, like take the courageous way out and eat your own pie type deal. Of course he didn't, but yeah, just like little things like that where that's the problems, in my opinion, with the movie, is it just was like rushing through so fast, and it wanted to maintain a connection to the book, and it did so well, but it left out just like really key pieces where it just made the movie kind of like fall on its face. And in my opinion, like Richie the Hammer was such a cartoon character. He was the worst part, in my opinion.
I fucking love it.
That's part of the movie.
I like him, but I literally contemplated if maybe it was all a dream, because he is so totally different from the rest of the
He's so totally
different. If they cut his hand off in the book, why would he also then give up? If you're no longer afraid of that guy murdering your kids,
Yeah. that's
Why
weird.
give that guy a way out? He's a day from dead anyway.
I think he started like believing in the curse of the white man from town type deal, where it's just like, okay, like this is, because like you said, you're like, why didn't he use his like litigious powers to start doing that? And then essentially that's what he did. He was the lawyer of the most powerful mob person in Maine.
He was his connects. Yeah.
He was his connection, so he essentially kind of did that, and you would assume that he had other scumbags underneath him. So maybe that's what Lemke kind of like. And again, maybe just giving this movie too much credit, but that's how I kind of piece it together and why he kind of like finally yielded. But that was, I think that was the main crux of it, and Lemke kind of makes out in the end because he not only gets rid of the person he was trying to get rid of, but he gets rid of his entire bloodline too. So.
Question about the book one more time. I need a little more clarification. There is the gentleman who he pays to just like watch. He's like, hey, let me know if they move.
It was my move.
Did they kill him in the book?
Yeah, same. That whole thing was just as brief and just as like, what? Yeah.
Nothing.
He got it so bad. Like, it was implied like chicken torture and shit. Like, he put a chicken head in his eye and all this shit. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Rated R for implied chicken torture.
Chicken torture. We're going to get red flagged on YouTube for chicken torture.
Was the granddaughter the Dorito girl? Where do I know her from?
Kari Wurr, man. She was a smoke show back in
What is
back
her
in the
big
90s.
thing, though?
She was the Alyssa Milano type, she was just but she was I thought she was pretty great like in this movie.
Well, for what she is, shooting bitches in the hands and being attractive, she's 10 out of 10.
She's 10 out of 10.
Also Eight-Legged Freaks, Sheriff Samantha Parker.
There you go.
I do know that movie.
He does love the Eight-Legged Freaks.
I like anything with David Arquette.
Watching this time, I was very conscious of how literally every scene is in there for like a reason, and sometimes a character starts talking for a long time, and I'm like, okay, this is book shit or whatever, right? And a perfect example, instead of just relying on the audience to understand that he's a scumbag lawyer and having a scene in the courtroom or a scene with a mobster or a scene where he talks to his family, the movie does all three of them. There's like a fourth scene. They have to keep pounding this into where I'm like, why does it have to be the same mobster you just got off this morning? Why can't like have him walking by, have someone shout like, "Ah, you're a murderer, you defend murderers." And it's like, oh honey, shut up, whatever. And just so you get this vibe, right? You need a screenwriter who can tell Steve, like, no, we can't put them all in the no, you get one. You get one plant and then one payoff. This is not a book. We don't have time for every scene to build to this fucking conclusion because it's not
Stephen King needed later, he needed to have time to be the pharmacist. He needed his cameo. He was
Honestly, it probably would have been better to not include any of the actual stuff. Just have the talk with him and the daughter, doing the little joke, implying that maybe he's a mobster, and then later on in the movie when he calls, "Hey, I need a favor." Like that was like, oh, he actually was a mobster. But when he calls, he's like, "Hey, can I ask you a friend? We're friends, right? Do you believe in curses? Just wondering." Like that's what the fuck is that?
Let me ask my mother, Ma.
Yeah. It's Dinner Rush, and he's asking about curses. Yeah. In a better movie, the entire Joe Montana character would have been handled off screen. Like seriously, you might have seen him sit and give him like a dirty mobster look, in the courtroom scene. But then after that, like you said, he just calls up and says, "I'm ready to cash in that favor, Richie." And then all this shit happens off screen. It's all implied. Black glove killer, kind of like a fucking giallo. Let's get real gruesome with it. Not fucking Joe Montana walking up to a bunch of dogs going, "You like barbitol?" or whatever he said, or like strychnine, or
who wants a little strychnine?
It's just so goofy. It gets so
cool
like
if he literally did nothing, like uncouth about getting him off, and literally is like just defending him. Our mobster guy has the defendant killed before the jury ever takes place, and they win, and he's like, "Oh, thank you so much, you got me off. Oh, if you need a favor, blah, blah." Like he literally didn't do anything. He's like, I didn't do anything wrong. I don't know what.
I've been calling him something different. Tony, I think. My fucking Tony Montana. Joe Montana, right?
Yeah.
If you have him, you have to use him though. So I think getting him might have even hurt them. But that doesn't they do this with everything. You need a screenwriter to say, okay, we have 5 things. We have to make the 2 on the edges lower, and then these 2 a little lower. Then you have your one. The movie's about something, right? It isn't just everything from your fucking book. Let's just pick a part of the book and make that. I don't need all these characters and all this in and out. And I want to know what the cops curse word was, because I think it might have been pig, and I think that might have been amazing, because his hands were kind of like, his fingers were like merging together, and he had like the lip from like the Twilight Zone where he had like a pig face or whatever. I'm like, it's funny.
Problem was they were trying to make Evil Dead 1 and Army in Darkness in the same movie, and that's those two things clashing together caused an incongruity that people couldn't get behind, because you had the people going in there going, okay, I'm going to try to take this seriously as like a Stephen King horror movie, just like they did with Tommy Knockers, and they're like, oh my god, this is the worst shit I ever seen, and walked out. But they're just like, I'm going to give this a chance, and the effects were there, and all this stuff was there, the backbone was there, and even the nihilistic ending was there, but then just weird, goofy, like Three Stooges shit happened in the middle, which completely threw it off kilter, and that's why I think this movie wound up being a failure.
It was like very underdressed the first time he has the thoughts that his wife is cheating on him. And I was like, wow, that was like a wild accusation. It seemed to me like, it seemed like it was very much out of the blue. Like, I'm like, no, you are having medical problems. Having a doctor stop by the house seems very, very reasonable. That's actually your doctor. It's a family friend. It all seemed like, I'm like, that's very logical for your crazy brain.
I think it's because of The Sopranos, though, with the like the priest guy or something. Because I had it in my head during this watch. I thought I like forgot that she was cheating on him or like whatever. But like right in the beginning, there's like a little scene. There's like 8, but there's like right in the beginning, he's like, oh, Dr. Mikey was here, and she kind of winces and says, I wish you wouldn't call him that. And I'm like, she's fucking him. They're fucking. I had this instant like thing. I remember now or something.
Right.
But I understand your point.
That to me makes it just seem like I wouldn't trust his opinion. Dr. Mikey, like, no, I think you might have cancer. I want you to see Dr. Michael. Like,
no, but that's the beauty, is that at every stage in the game, because he even like overhears them. They could have done more. Had you trimmed the movie, you could have developed any of these things more. And because imagine he's wrong about something. He's like, he thinks they're fucking now, and he like bursts through the door, and they're like, "What? We're going over paperwork," and it's like, oh. Well, fuck. And now you're like, wait,
it's her crying. You've lost 40 pounds in 2 weeks.
And even though he is like correct about pretty much everything nefarious that's going on, he himself is so unlikable. You can't get behind anybody but the daughter. That's the only person that you care about. Maybe the granddaughter of the Gypsies that is dying, and she gets out alive. But like, you can't really like anybody in this. Certainly not the wife, not the doctor, not him, not Lemke, because everyone's an extremist asshole. There was 2 ways you could have gone curtain A or B with this movie. And curtain A was the more David Fincher type implied horror, where you don't know, everything is super ambiguous, everything's off screen, and in my opinion more effective as far as a thriller goes. Maybe even his curse is more ambiguous than it actually is as a spelled out thing. Or you go just super batshit crazy, let's just add some fat guy in a suit farts, like let's go really Joe Dante or something, with this shit, and make it just like a boner jam almost, with this weird premise of like a nutty professor. But they went with curtain C, and that's what they got wrong.
I'm picturing like the reverse Santa Claus.
Yeah.
Where it's like,
exactly.
I'm thin again. What the fuck? And it's That's like,
and there's a comedy there's a really funny comedy in here, and there's a really scary movie in there, but there's not both. You can't do both, and they try to do both.
You have Wiggly Pie. That's something.
The Wiggly Pie.
No, like, because earlier you were like, oh, the bad guy is this old guy who puts the curse on him and stuff. And I was like, oh, no, the bad guy's the lawyer. The fat lawyer's the bad guy. Right. It's all his fault. He destroys the lives of like 8 people, but you follow him, and he's not like an anti-hero, and he's not like a complex character whose head you want to get into. He doesn't even like make mistakes, really, right? He doesn't even like whatever. I guess
he's just doing his job.
And says like, hey, fuck. Well, no, I mean, even like afterwards when he goes to say like, take the curse off.
To give his wife the pie.
But at the end, he turns into such a mustache twirling villain. Yeah, you can't root for him.
That's like the way he just goes so off the boat. Like he like sees this grotesque. Like now the pie would have instantly given her the thinner disease, and she would have been as thin as possible. And he even says like, oh, you're like a size 4, or 6, maybe a size 4.
But they turn into a ring victim.
She looks gigantic. Her head looks twice the size. I think she was smaller before she got thinner. I don't know what that's supposed to be. But him kissing her, he just becomes this maniacal, crazy person.
Right.
Yeah.
Who the fuck would do that?
Right.
Well, it's trying to say that, like, see, he like is this monster, and he was the whole time, and therefore whatever happened, don't worry or whatever. But yes, you've just been through a whole movie like rooting for Joe Mantegna for some reason as the good guy, right? And it's very confused at the end when he's on the.
It's literally just the daughter and the granddaughter where I'm just like, okay, I could sympathize with these two women because everyone else is a complete asshole. It's like the granddaughter is constantly getting hit on by the white man, and then like also they kill her husband, they kill her mom or grandma or whatever.
Kill her husband. They set up a situation where
which is kind of
others
sweet.
Kill her husband.
Kind of sweet.
And that's pretty fine.
It's a good scene.
That's one of those movie things where I'm like, that's clearly not the guy. What are you shooting at? You don't know what your husband looks like? What the fuck's wrong with you? I understand implied Scooby-Doo style darkness or whatever.
Sure.
She's very fast and loose with the acid too. He like puts it on her head, and you know any smart person would be like, "All right, okay."
Yeah.
She's like, "Ha!" I'm like, "What are you doing? That's acid, you fucking idiot."
Acid, bitch.
I don't. Okay, so I mean, I would obviously recommend this movie, but I will say who I would recommend this movie after I even get to if you two would even recommend this movie. So we'll start with Stephan. Would you recommend Thinner?
I think two of the right people. I think I could pick out the demographic and like know who would enjoy this. But if you're like me, if you like things that are like, you know, actually scary or actually funny or creature featurey or, you know, things like there's not enough effects here to really keep me interested. It's a little slow. As I am older, I enjoyed it more than when I was younger, but I still would not have watched this had you not posed, hey, let's talk about this. Because like I had enough of a memory to be like, that's not going to be my thing.
But you liked it a little more.
I liked it more this time. Yeah.
All right.
It was definitely, it's a serviceable movie. It's fine. But no, I wouldn't say it's like a 5 out of 10 for me.
Sure. Okay. Hey, I'll take that. Because before it was what, like a 2?
Oh, my first watch was like 1 or 2.
Oh,
he was like -2. I got shit for this for years, and I'm like, I think it's okay. I don't know. I liked it. I don't know.
So when we reconvene in 20 years, it will be like a 7 for Stephan.
My mind will be degrading back to me being a child, and I'll be like, it sucks, John, stupid idiot.
Your mind will have the Thinner.
You're not a lizard. Yeah.
Lee.
I liked it less, I guess, because I have more of a fuller whatever. I was trying to find the name of it. There's a Stephen King thing with Anthony Hopkins. Was that Hearts in Atlantis?
Hearts in Atlantis.
Okay, I remember watching that and being like, this is like for adults. What is this, like a book? Fuck this and all that stuff. Right? So like I think you like if you were coming at this in 1996 with like Cujo and Pet Sematary and all that shit in the chamber, you're going to be very disappointed. And now I understand that because we never actually talked about it this fully, where I didn't like understand. I'm like, what's wrong or whatever. I still like it for a lot of reasons. I think it's cool and like weird and stuff. I would recommend people see it, but yeah, you can't go into it expecting it to be a horror or scary or like whatever. And they knew that it was called Romani at the time because it's in the script. He calls, you know, when Joe Mantegna pretends to be like an FBI agent, he calls her Mrs. Romani. That's their name. It's a fucking joke to these people. Fuck you. What the fuck?
Yes.
Time. Okay.
I would recommend this. I would recommend this to actually people that have seen Stephen King films or read Stephen King books, because like I said, this actually has, a nihilistic ending, and maybe not it's not an Ari Aster ending or anything like that, but it is an ending. And that is something that not even the fucking Dark Tower that he wrote for like 80 years has, that could say. So Thinner at least succeeds in some aspects that Stephen King books and movies does not. I think if you go into this nowadays viewing it as a comedy first, it's directed by Tom Holland. I jested at the beginning that it's directed by Spider-Man. It's not the same Tom Holland. This is the director of Child's Play and Fright Night, and I think that was his jam, but maybe merging that like comedy and horror together. But this didn't really this script and all that didn't lend to that type of, so maybe with like a different actor, because I think most of it was competently made. It's a very competently made film, but it's tonally an absolute mess. But if you're looking for something that's like a brisk like 90 minutes, and it has some cool creature effects and some batshit crazy things, like a rated R Scrooged kind of thing. I think this might be worth your time. Plus, it's like streaming everywhere for free. They can't give this shit away. Like, no, every streaming service has it. Nobody wants it. But it's one of my like personal like guilty pleasure, like favorite guilty pleasures, I'll say. Fun across the board as far as performances go, even though that fucking Robert John Burke is a cartoon character. I mean, he is literally like Fletcher Reed from Liar Liar, but with like fat guy makeup on, and it's kind of interesting. So if that's your jam too, or your kink even, I don't judge, and why don't you check it out? So boys from Cannibal Video, where can everyone find you?
We are Cannibal Video on YouTube. You can get a direct link to us, www.cannibal.video. Bam.
The best theme song in the business.
Plugs in the game. Oh.
So you could follow us on Twitter. You follow me personally on Twitter at John the Host. You could also follow this show at The Cult of Films. Gentlemen, do we have a thinner out?
Our business is done.